My name is Kuma Roberts, and I want to thank you for joining me here with the Tulsa Area United Way LEAD 2020 presentation, Successful Women Bring a Folding Chair. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit more about me. Then we'll talk about the status of women in 2021. We'll get into the double-blind effect. We'll talk about the Chisholmisms, my favorite part. And then we'll talk about ways that you can bring your own folding chair to expand your influence at work. So let's get started. You may or may not know that I left the Tulsa Regional Chamber as the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion a few months ago. And I've landed at Arrowhead Consulting, a project management, leadership development, organizational effective firm that focuses on aiming for your success. They've added my capability in diversity, equity, and inclusion to the team, and I'm excited to help dig a little bit deeper to help you all and your organizations figure out how you can make more equitable and more inclusive strategy changes for your workplace. With that being said, I'll just tell you a little bit about me. I have to tell you that I live a pretty diverse life. I'm married to my husband, Floyd. He's about 33 years older than I am. Together, we're raising my 16-year-old daughter from another marriage, and of course, our 3-year-old son, Zeke, the many faces of Zeke that many of you are familiar with on Facebook. I talk about my little family and my diversity of my family because I think there's so much more that defines me versus just my gender and my race. I was a divorced mom. I was a single mom for a while. I have an intergenerational marriage and an interracial marriage. I'm a professional mom. I go to work every day and my husband stays at home. So we challenge norms all the time in my personal life. And I encourage you all to dig deep and think about how you all are challenging the norms in your own life. Everyone has something that's diverse and inclusive that they can add to the story about this work. So definitely consider that as you all are thinking about your own personal story as it relates to D&I. I want to talk a little bit about the status of women in the workplace. It has been a historic year for women. There are more serving in Congress than ever before, and last year there was a record number of women that were running for president back in 2020. But even with those significant gains, women, both in the US and around the world, still find gender equality elusive. You know, although the glass ceiling has been raised compared to recent years, it still exists. And today, on average, women earn still just 80.5 cents for every dollar that a man earns. And a woman's median annual income earnings are still $10,000 less than a man, according to the US Census Bureau data. Regardless of these statistics, we still go to work, we still take care of our families, we still clean our homes and do laundry, and we still continue to fight for equality because we are women and we are strong. When Catalyst asked senior level executives in the United States and Europe to independently rate the effectiveness of women and men leaders on a number of key leadership behaviors, both men and women respondents cast women as better at stereotypical feminine behaviors like caretaking skills or supporting and encouraging each other. And then both women and men asserted that men excel at more conventionally masculine taking charge skills such as influencing superiors, problem solving, and characteristics that previous research has shown to be the essential component of a leadership responsibility. Research shows that these perceptions are even more relevant when women seek to become leaders or advance in traditionally male-dominated fields, such as engineering or law. In these contexts, women are viewed as even more out of place and have to put considerable effort into proving themselves otherwise. You know, we all know the feeling of being trapped in what they call a double bind. It's that nagging sense that whatever you do, you can do no right. Few know what it feels like more than we as women in the workplace. As Catalyst research confirms, despite the numerous business contribution of women leaders, men are still largely seen as the leaders by default. It's what researchers call the think leader, think male mindset. As atypical leaders, women are often perceived as going against the norms of leadership or those of femininity. So, when you're caught between impossible choices, Those who try to conform to the traditional or masculine leadership behaviors are damned if they do and doomed if they don't. Ultimately, it's not our leadership styles that need to change, but it's the structures and the perceptions that we have to change to keep up with today's changing times. So enter one of my favorite people, Shirley Chisolm, who's widely known for her history-making turn in 1972 when she became the first African-American woman from a major political party to run for president, and the first Democratic woman of any race to do so. But Chisolm's presidential bid was far from her only accomplishment throughout her 80 years of life. She earned a master's in elementary school education. She served in the New York State Assembly. She was the first Black woman elected to Congress, and her presidential bid brought racial and gender equity to the national stage. In fact, when she was announcing her bid for the presidency, Chisolm said, "I am not the candidate of Black America, although I am Black and proud. I'm not the candidate of the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman and I am equally proud of that." She said, "I am the candidate of the people, and my presence before you now symbolizes a new era in American political history." She was a genius and has so many quotes that resonate with me still today, and hopefully for some of you across the world. It's not hard to see why she's my shero and why I want to share a few of her Chisolm-isms with you all today. One of the first things she said was, "Tremendous amounts of talent are lost to our society just because that talent wears a skirt." I mean, can you argue with that? How amazing is that? The next one is, "I'm looking to no man walking this earth for approval of what I'm doing." She had words for everything. This next one is really good. She says, "It's obvious that discrimination exists. Women do not have the same opportunities that men do. And women that do not conform to the system, who try to break with the accepted patterns, are stigmatized as odd and unfeminine." And I've certainly heard that a lot over my career. She also said, "My greatest political asset, which professional politicians fear, is my mouth, out of which come all kinds of things one shouldn't always discuss for reasons of political expediency." I can relate to that too. She also said, "One of my handicaps, of my many handicaps, being female put many more obstacles in my path than being Black." So you can tell that she was pretty prolific in the words that she says. But one of the things that brings me to you all today to talk about leading as women in 2021 is this quote right here. "If they don't give you a seat at the table, then bring in a folding chair." I absolutely love this quote, and I'm always looking for ways to bring in my folding chair as I seek to move forward in my career and in hopes of helping other women do the same in theirs. We love Shirley Chisolm so much in my household that my daughter, who's now 16, decided to dress up like her in the 8th grade when she had a school project on women that she admired the most. When I teach my daughter about Shirley and the countless other women who are bringing their folding chairs, here are some of the things that I want her to know, and I want to share those with you today. Lift as you climb, women. A rising tide lifts all boats, and the more people you help, the more you will not only feel great, but you'll also elevate yourself. And once you get to the top, you'll be surrounded by the amazing people who support you and whom you've supported. The next one is, don't assume that good work always speaks for itself. Sometimes you have to point out your good work and get the praise that it deserves. I love this quote I read somewhere. They said, "Your work can't speak for itself because your work doesn't speak." It's your job to make sure that as many people, both internally and externally, know about your contribution. It's not considered boasting, it's communicating. The next one is, get real. We have a responsibility to demonstrate and encourage a culture that fosters inclusion and respect for ideas and a diversity of thought. Get real by engaging in conversations in which people feel valued and respected for their differences. Be willing to speak up as a champion for inclusion when you witness difficult situations or exclusionary behaviors, bias, and discrimination. The next one is always function as the CEO of your career. Your success is your responsibility. And one of my mentors, Carol Huff Hicks at PSO, told me, Kuma, you have to think about Kuma Incorporated and how you're going to advance your own career and your own life. If you don't promote yourself, who will? It's our job to do our best, to network, and to always seek opportunity to make our goals clear to anyone who will listen. The more that you do this, the more others will be willing to help. But we actually have to take the first step. The next one is sponsorship. If you want to create a path to success, we have to support, mentor, and sponsor more women as both leaders and as entrepreneurs. The Catalyst CEO, Deborah Gillis, said, at a certain point, the path to success changes from what you know to who knows what you know. The consistent theme in my own career was people vouching for me and championing me within their own networks. I can tell you that not enough leaders are sponsoring highly qualified women by speaking up on their behalf. In any work culture, relationships are necessary for employees to attain high visibility assignments, promotions, and connections. For women, sponsors, advocates in positions of authority who use their influence intentionally to help others advance are essential to ensuring career advancement and professional development. We know that a lot of women have mentors, but we also need sponsors who will give us visibility, who will talk about our accomplishments, and promote us for stretch opportunities. This is one of my favorite ones. Believe, believe, believe in yourself. One of my other mentors, Tracy Spears, always wondered about the imposter syndrome and how do we get past it, and always challenged me with ways to get beyond myself and my own limited thinking. Henry Ford famously said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Belief in yourself carries more weight in how others see you than most anything else. So women, shine on. Women continue to encounter challenges when it comes to advancing ourselves in the workplace and in many facets of society. Here are just a few action steps that I think you should be able to take, both male and female leaders, to make more room at the table for women who are trying to succeed at work. The first one is flexible work arrangements. This pandemic has changed the way that we're working, and many of us enjoy working flexibly. So flexible work arrangements for women, once seen as just an employee benefit or an accommodation for caregivers, are now an effective tool for organizations to attract top talent, as well as a cost-saving measure to reduce turnover, productivity, and absenteeism. What you can do as leaders, both male and female, are focus on productivity and results and not necessarily the time spent at the desk. Seek out managers who currently work flexibly and find out what works and what doesn't. And then encourage your own teams to be role models and consider utilizing more flexible working agreements. The next one is equal pay. It's 2021 and women still make less than men. Women around the world continue to face a wage gap. What you can do is ensure that there are no gaps in your workplace by doing a wage audit. You can support pay transparency, and you can evaluate recruitment, promotion, and talent development systems for gender bias. And for those of you here in Tulsa, you can have your employer sign the Mayor's Pay Equity Pledge that just was released this year. It would be important for your workplace to showcase their commitment to making sure that pay is equitable across their organization. Race and gender bias is another one. Women of color continue to deal with some of the workplace's most entrenched hurdles. Everyone has unconscious biases, even the most well-intentioned people, which play out in their everyday lives and interactions, such as those in the workplace. Working women of color face a unique set of challenges that intersect across race, ethnicity, gender, and culture. Because of this, many women of color oftentimes have to deal with daunting roadblocks, such as other people's beliefs, attitudes, and experiences. Here's something that you can do, both male or female, is you can become a bias interrupter by not shying away from talking about uncomfortable or difficult topics. Each of us, regardless of our race or gender, has a role to play. You can also be open to feedback and learning and hearing what some of your coworkers across different race and ethnicity have to say. And of course, if you see harmful behavior in your workplace, say something. Otherwise, your silence makes you complicit. Build trust, confront inequities head-on throughout your organizational-wide strategies, and offer air cover to defend and support women with their innovative ideas. The next one is sexual harassment. Women at all levels of employment and all levels of the workplace can be affected by this. Sexual harassment remains a widespread problem, and at least 1/4 of women having reported some sort of harassment on the job. This inappropriate behavior costs employers in many ways, including increased absenteeism, persistent job turnover, low productivity and engagement, and individually can lead women to become depressed, experience anxiety, and quit altogether in the hope of avoiding continued harassment. What can you do as a leader? You can develop and implement prevention strategies, such as a highly visible community education campaign. You can ensure access to properly working workplace reporting mechanisms to eradicate such behavior. And you can train your managers to report any complaints or observations of harassment. And lastly, don't be double-bind blind. The woman's ability to lead is often undermined by gender stereotypes. The stereotype that men take charge and women take care puts women leaders in that obvious double bind. What we can all do is we cannot discredit the effectiveness of women leaders based on gender stereotypes. We can challenge ourselves whether we're judging people fairly to reverse the gender of the person in question and see if it makes a difference in our thinking. And we can expose employees to peers, including men, who are willing to advocate for women leaders. And we can provide diversity and inclusion training to help employees understand the effects of gender stereotyping in the workplace. To me, being a woman means being a valuable member of society. It means being opinionated, articulate, and strong-willed. It means working to destroy the double standards that can be forced upon us. You can like wearing makeup and sundresses while also being intelligent and deserving of powerful positions. It means supporting fellow women when society ceaselessly pits us against one another. Above all, it means being unapologetic for who we are, what we want, and what we deserve. We're all real human beings, just like everyone else, and we deserve to be heard. Society will be better for it, and not worse. So let's all be like Shirley Chisolm. And where's your folding chair? Thanks for joining me today.